Hi, you are engaging in the ELA Guidebooks unit, Pushing Up the Sky. The purpose of this video is to learn more about folktale stories around the world. This will help you better understand what a folktale is and how folktales from around the world are similar in some really interesting ways. Be sure you have your handout available and something to write with for the video. Just when they thought they had escaped, they heard a low growl behind them. Slowly they turned, but saw nothing except darkness. Then, out of the shadows, it leaps towards them. Whew, that was a scary story. People love to tell and hear stories, whether it's around a campfire, at a sleepover, at recess, or even just sitting at home. Many times, we tell the same story over and over again as a tradition. In fact, people have been telling stories like this for tens of thousands of years. In this video, we are going to focus on a certain kind of story, the folktale. A folktale is different than a ghost story you may hear around the campfire or a fairy tale you might read in a book. Folktales are oral traditions. They began thousands of years ago with people telling stories over and over again and were not written down at first. Each generation would retell their folktales to the next, and so the stories would grow and change as they were retold over and over again. People retell the same story over and over again for hundreds of years, and one reason is that stories can teach important moral lessons. They even tell us about characters that were either rewarded or punished for the choices they made. Every culture has its own set of folktales. Culture is the beliefs and traditions of a particular group of people. There are many cultures around the world, and each one is different. These folktale stories have been told and retold many times for so long that we often don't even know who came up with them. Even though each culture has its own folktales, they all share the same basic elements. One element that all folktales share are characters. The characters in the story are who the story is about. You can tell who the main character of a story is by thinking about who is doing most of the action, who is going places and saying things. In folktales, characters are sometimes human, but they can also be animals, trees, rocks or mountains, clouds, or even the sky. Often in folktales, these non-human characters will act and talk as though they are people. Paying attention to the choices these characters make helps us understand the moral or lesson the story is trying to teach. Another element that folktales share are events. These are the things that happen in the story as the characters try to solve some problem or face some kind of challenge. Sometimes there are a raging river that needs to be crossed, or a race that one character is challenged to, or even a danger that must be defeated. In folktales, characters face these challenges in different ways. A fun way to think about the characters and events in the story is to summarize it by saying somebody wanted but so then. Somebody means the main characters in the story. Wanted means what is it the character wants? But is the problem, what is keeping the character from getting what they want? And so is what the character does to try and solve the problem. Then is what happens in the end. For example, you've probably heard the story The Tortoise and the Hare. This is a Greek folktale that was first written down thousands of years ago, but is probably so much older than that. In this story, the fast hare challenges the slow tortoise to a race. The tortoise agrees, and when the race starts, the hare races ahead while the tortoise plods slowly along. After a while, the hare gets distracted and stops running. In some versions, he even takes a nap. But the tortoise just keeps walking along towards the finish line. By the time the hare realizes the tortoise has passed him, it's too late, and the tortoise wins the race. Now you are ready to think about the main characters in the story. Pause this video to record your answers on your handout at the first stop sign. Then, hit play when you are ready to continue. Let's review. In the story, the tortoise and the hare are the main characters. They are the ones doing most of the actions. Many times in folktales, there will be animal characters that act and talk like people. Now that we know the characters, let's summarize the events in the story. What did the main characters want? Hare wanted to prove he was fast by racing Tortoise. What was the problem? Well, Hare was lazy and kept getting distracted and stopping. So, what happened? Tortoise was able to get ahead. And how did the story end? Tortoise won the race. Let's look at another folktale to see if we can find the same elements there. Have you ever heard of the story of the herring and the hummingbird? This is an old Native American folktale that has been passed down for generations. Long ago, there were two birds: the heron, a large bird with a long neck and long legs, and the hummingbird, a tiny bird that zips from place to place, who loved to eat fish. Hummingbird was worried that there were not enough fish in the world for both of them, so he challenged Heron to a race to see who could get all of the fish in the world. As soon as the race started, Hummingbird raced ahead while Heron flew slowly and steadily. Hummingbird was sure he would win because he was so much faster, but then he got distracted by all of the beautiful flowers growing along the way. Instead of racing, Hummingbird began flying from flower to flower, admiring them. While he was looking at the flowers, slow and steady, Heron passed him. When Hummingbird saw that Heron was in the lead, he tried to catch up, but it was too late. The slow and steady Heron won the race. Now you are ready to summarize the main events in that story. Pause this video to record your answers on your handout at the second stop sign. Then, hit play when you are ready to continue. Let's review. The main characters in this story were Heron and Hummingbird. They wanted to race to see who could get all of the fish in the world. But even though Hummingbird was faster, he kept getting distracted by all the flowers. So, slow and steady Heron pulled into the lead. In the end, Heron won the race. The story of the Heron and Hummingbird is a Native American folktale. The Tortoise and the Hare is a folktale from ancient Greece. Even though these folktales came across from cultures of different continents, thousands of miles apart, they share many common elements. In both stories, we find characters that are often animals and events that show how to solve a problem. Some characters are rewarded for their choices, like the tortoise and the heron who won the race by staying on task and never giving up. Other characters are punished for their decisions, like the hare and the hummingbird, who get distracted because they think they will win easily. You have now learned about folktales and how they share common elements. You will use this new knowledge as you engage in the ELA Guidebooks unit, Pushing Up the Sky. Make sure to turn in your completed handout to your teacher when you are finished this video.